What's up, everybody? This is Dan, back with another Moonshine talking. And if you can't tell by the background, I was going to talk about the new Gatecreeper album that just came out. But first, I actually wanted to talk about a couple of things I've been spinning recently. Because, yeah, fun story there. I have a problem. So, anyhow, I went to the record store. I went to the local sound exchange after I found out that they had a copy of the Gatecreeper album. They said they only had it on vinyl. On vinyl. So I was like, okay, that's fine. I would have preferred CD because if you watch my stuff, you know I'm more of a CD guy. But I go in there, I see the thing sitting there. It's on display on the rack up on the top shelf and whatnot. And then I make the mistake of going in there and start thumbing through the racks, which was a bad idea because I ended up picking up a bunch of stuff, which was not a bad thing. It's not the worst thing in the world to spend your money on, but I was just at the place the day before buying some CDs. I just went in there just to see what they had, and they had a couple things, so I picked those up. And then I bought some other stuff earlier in the week off of online on eBay. As a matter of fact, right now, as I'm recording this, I'm dealing with some issues with one of the providers because said my stuff got delivered, it didn't get delivered, and so now I got to go through the whole process of trying to figure out what to do, and so and it'll probably all work itself out, but it's still just a giant pain in the ass having to deal with all that, and you get dealing with the postal service and all that. They could screw up a wet dream half the time, so we'll see how that goes, but I'm sure at the end of the day they'll either get me the disc that I ordered, or they'll probably just give me my money back or whatever the deal is. But I'm not. I contacted the seller directly and told him, look, I'm not a scam artist. I'm not trying to hustle you. So if we sort this out, I'd love to get the CDs, but you got to get them to me. And I don't know why the postal service did what they did. But that said, also, you'll have to excuse me, my voice is a little scratchy. It's 2 in the morning right now, and I just got back from the Amon Amarth concert that I went to tonight. It was them and Cannibal Corpse, Obituary, who I got to see for the first time, and Frozen Soul. It was a killer show. I loved it. It was a great time. I'm gonna end up doing a review of it, or at least go into a little more length and detail about it. But it was a killer show. I had a great time. Everybody there had a good time. So give me 1 second, please. So as far as some of the stuff I got, first off, speaking of, that's a good transition. I found One Cent from the Golden Hall by Amon Amarth, their debut album. It was just one of those things where I saw it sitting there and I went in there for one thing and I was just like, I have to get this. I don't have a copy of this at all. And I love this album. Uh, Victorious March. I heard that that's the first song of theirs I ever heard. I heard it on a Metal Blade compilation. It just blew my socks off. And I've never owned a copy of this, but I love it. Amon Amarth is a killer song. Like I said, Victorious March, Ride for Vengeance, One Cent from the Golden Hall, all killer songs. It's a great album. Actually, I was watching a video by Trevor, who has his Fumes of Hatred channel, and he had a video that I just saw that it was bands that went from peachy to poo poo, which is a funny title. And he was talking about Amon Amarth and how probably after, in his opinion, after the third album, they kind of started dropping off for him. I like some of their later stuff, some of their the middle, the the middle bits of their discography. I know I'm sound like an asshole, but just bear with me. Um, they probably, I don't know, their last one I didn't pick up, Great Heathen Army. I didn't pick that one up. The one before that, that was decent. Berserker, that was pretty good. They had a couple good songs on there. I think Jorm's Viking. I know I'm mispronouncing that, but that one, I think that one was kind of like eh. But by and large, I like most of their stuff, even the stuff that people think is kind of a little, little too poppy, for lack of a better way of calling it. But anyhow, and speaking of another one that I haven't been able to find a copy of on CD, and I just happened to see it there, and I was like, I have to get this. Bewitcher, Cursed Be Thy Kingdom. I love these guys. Ever since I saw them open up for, I think it was Cavalera. They opened up for Cavalera, and they were fantastic. I had never heard them before. I knew they were opening, but I just went in there blind just so I could check them out and see if I enjoyed them. And they got the whole black and thrash thing going on. This one's a little more, again, not to use it's not the right choice of words, but a little poppier. It's a little more accessible as far as black thrash goes. But it's got some killer tracks on here. Valley of the Ravens is tremendous. Satanic Magic Attack is tremendous. Uh, White Knight City Mystifier, that's great. Uh, Metal Burner, they do a cover of Sign of the Wolf by Pentagram, which is one of my favorite Pentagram songs. Yeah, it's killer. I mean, their stuff, the vocals on it, the vocal presentation is a little bit more, it's not as harsh on the previous albums that they've done. Like they still have like a lot of that old school Venom Bathory worship going on, but they're definitely what's the guy's name here? Uh, Matthias or whatever his name is. Here on, but he kind of he definitely enunciates a little bit better, tries to do a little bit more singing. Yeah, I think it's Matthias von Bewitcher, if I'm not mistaken. Here, we're doing this on the fly, as I tend to do from time to time. Yeah, it doesn't really say on here that, from what I can see, M. Von Bewitcher is what it says. But yeah, they just their stuff is a little bit more, I'd say, a little more accessible on this one. But it's super killer. If you're not really familiar with them, I would pick this up. It's a good album, and I get some of their earlier stuff. Their stuff is tremendous. They're definitely one of my favorite newer acts that are out there. Also, this one was kind of cool. Uh, I got this rib spreader. Yeah, I just did the review on Deicide, and Taylor Nordberg, who's in this band, is now playing for them. What was kind of cool was that he and one of the other members signed it, but I thought was kind of stupid was it's signed on the cellophane, which I don't know. I'm not a big autograph guy, so I don't know. Can somebody explain me why would you do that? I mean, I would figure if you wanted to get something autographed, you'd get it autographed on the vinyl itself. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That just seemed kind of weird. But yeah, that's some killer Swedish death metal, HM2 style worship. Very very reminiscent of Dismember and Grave and Entombed and uh, probably At the Gate, stuff like that. It's really good. There's one song on here in particular, World Dismemberment, that really reminded me of Casket Garden by Dismember off a massive killing capacity. And yeah, that's a good one. I've only spun it once, but that was kind of my impression of it. But it was pretty good. And I've also heard Reap Humanity, so I might have to start picking up more Rib Spreader because I really do enjoy that. Then another one I got is this Pale Divine Cemetery Earth off of I Hate Records. It's a few years older. They're a Pittsburgh band. They do more traditional doom, more in the vein of Trouble, I would say. A little bit more positive lyrics, not all death, doom, and destruction and whatnot. More they kind of focus more on positivity. They're a bit religious, almost to the point of being like Christian or white metal or what have you, but it's not quite that far. Yeah, this one's killer. I love this. I heard this probably a couple years ago, and yeah, it's fantastic. I Alone the Traveler is a killer track. The opening solo to it is tremendous. Cemetery Earth, which is a title track, that one's a fantastic song. Eyes of Destiny, the opener's great. The Conqueror Worm closes it out, and it's another phenomenal one. Yeah, if you've never heard these guys, check them out. If you like traditional doom, uh, more like I say in the vein of like a Trouble or a Pentagram as opposed to like a Candlemass or somebody like that, then I would check those guys out because they're really good. And this one I have been sleeping on for a while, but it really deserves its own little review or analysis or just talking about it. But this Lord Humongous, Revik from Morden Red, he recommended this one. He interviewed the vocalist for the band, and this thing is phenomenal. It's like a cross between war metal and old school thrash, like in the style of Exodus. At least that's according to the vocalist. And it's great. I mean, I love this. The Bullet Farmer. It's got a guitar. Uh, it's got a riff on there where it almost kind of like there's a melody on there where the guitar almost sings, if that makes sense. But that one's really good. The Toe Cutter, Just Walk Away. The whole thing is inspired by Mad Max, The Road Warrior, the movies with Mel Gibson, and obviously Lord Humongous. The Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla is phenomenal. He dresses up like in the spikes and all that sort of stuff. It's great. The presentation, everything. Here, I'll even show you real quick what these dudes look like. I'm not gonna try to pronounce some of the names, but I know one guy's Cherno Bill, which is very funny. And then the way they describe the musicians and all that, it's kind of tongue in cheek. They obviously got a sense of humor, but it's really good. If you like stuff like that, I would definitely pick that up. I'd recommend it. That one's is a killer album, and that one's kind of slipping through the cracks, I think, with some people because not a lot of people are aware of them, but they are a really good band. I know in the next one, the vocalist was talking about maybe not so much going into continue with the Road Warrior theme because I get it. You don't want to be saddled or labeled as a gimmick band. So I understand not wanting to do all that for all of eternity because, then it's kind of, I would imagine it's kind of harder as a musician to evolve if you get strapped into a gimmick forever. And sometimes, I could tell you you do a gimmick that maybe you don't want to get stuck with. Sometimes you end up getting stuck with it, but it is what it is. That's part of like it just is what it is. It's part of entertainment. It's part of being in show business and what have you. So that said, let's get into the review here. This one came out Friday on Nuclear Blast Records. It's Gatecreeper's third studio album, their first on Nuclear Blast. Actually, they had Kurt Ballou produce it, who just did the new High on Fire one. And then I went looking a little bit. He's got quite the prolific producing, mixing, recording resume. He did Goatwhore's last album, and that one's a phenomenal album. So, and a couple others that kind of stood out to me were he's done a bunch of Gatecreeper stuff, a bunch of High on Fire stuff. A few bands I never heard of, but yeah, he's got like a long laundry list of stuff that he's been doing. So, and he's in a band called Converge, who I'm not really familiar with, but I know some people are familiar with him. But the band itself is Chase Mason on vocals, Eric Wagner, not from Trouble, uh, and Israel Garza on guitars, Alex Brown on bass, and Matt Arabola on drums, which I thought was kind of weird because I looked it up and it's kind of confusing because the drummer from Cannabis Corpse is apparently their live drummer, but he does the albums, so I don't know if he's a hired gun and he just he records the albums, but then maybe he can't. He's got other obligations and he can't go out on tour, so they get the dude from Cannabis Corpse. I'm not quite sure. And then they got a guy by the name of Preston Bryan who comes in. He did some keyboard work for him. Uh, yeah, this is tremendous. This is the band, if you've never seen them before. And that is a strong mustache on Mr. Mason there. But you see, they're all rocking all the band tees, Sentenced, Obituary, Candlemass. I don't know what the one was that Alex was wearing. Uh, but yeah, overall, this thing is killer. It's their style is again they're kind of like Rib Spreader. They're more in the vein of old school Swedish death metal. I think nowadays people refer to it as HM2 worship, meaning the Boss HM2 pedal that a lot of the old Swedish bands used to use to get that chainsaw guitar sound. So a lot of newer bands have adopted that and kind of I'm sure kind of like myself, they grew up liking that sound, like that sound of Dismember and Entombed and Grave and At the Gates and that sort of stuff. So they want to emulate it and kind of come up with their own spin on it. And these guys do a killer job. I mean, start with Chase's vocals. He's got a very unique presentation. He has these different vocal cadences and inflections to the lyrics that he writes, and it's really good. It's unique. It kind of stands out in a little bit of a way that normally it's kind of hard for me to really explain it, but it's a different way of enunciating the different vocals, and where you think it would go one way, it kind of goes a different way. So it's good, it's different, and sometimes that's being different's not a bad thing. As far as my favorite songs on the album, I would have to say, like, I had to listen to this a couple of times because for the first listen, there was a couple songs that kind of like they kind of seemed almost like paint by numbers. Like, if you've ever seen The Simpsons, and there's a scene in one episode where they go to a Mexican restaurant and they can't afford to pay for their meal, so they end up sticking them up on stage as a mariachi band, and they're playing La Bamba, and they get done, and the restaurant owner looks at them and goes, "Oh, well, technically proficient. That song lacked passion." And then they go into some other song. I don't know what the hell it is, but that's kind of how I felt about it. Was that there was a couple songs on there that it almost seemed like, it was like it just lacked a little bit of passion to it. Like, kind of they were just it was just kind of cookie cutter. But Dead Star, the opener, that one's fantastic. Uh, Black Curtain, which is one of the singles, that one's great. I love that one. Just talking about being a zombie and undead and all that sort of stuff. Caught in the Treads is another single. That's probably my favorite on the entire album. There's a hook towards the end of it that is just you just give me that's fist banging city all day. That thing's great. A Chilling Aura is really good. Uh, Superstitious Vision. That's about gambling, and it's that one's probably the most death and rolly of the songs on the album, as far as like more akin to like the Entomb's Wolverine Blues and some of the stuff later after that that some people shit on, but I love that stuff. I love Wolverine Blues. That's one of my favorite albums. And then Flesh Habit, that's another cool one. That one, I think you read the lyrics, it's about being a werewolf and being addicted to flesh, so you can't go wrong with that. But that one's really good. And Tears Fall from the Sky, that's the closer, and that one's probably the most melodic of the songs on the album. Like, the whole thing is full of catchy hooks and melody, and it's all done in the style of old school Swedish 90s death metal, which I'm a big fan of, big proponent of. And it's not to the point of where they're just ripping it off, but it's definitely this is the stuff that they grew up on, and it's cool. I like it. That's stuff I grew up on, so I'm not going to complain about bands coming out nowadays and doing the same sort of thing. But yeah, it's really good. And then with the Tears Fall from the Sky, there are that's where I think I've noticed the keyboards that come into it the most. And it's in the background. It's tasteful. It's present, but it's not overbearing, if that makes any sense. But yeah, this whole album, it really not to be puntastic here, but it really crept up on me. Like, I listened to it a few times, and I was like, man, like, first time I heard it, the first side, it was like there was a couple good tracks, like The Black Curtain and Dead Star was good, and then that's the few of the others on the first side, they were kind of the ones where it was like almost seemed like paint by numbers. Then I listened to it a few more times and Superstitious Vision. Then I was like, yeah, I'm getting into that one more. And then the whole second side is really good. I would say, other than probably Mistaken for Dead, just kind of, I don't know, it just didn't hit with me. There was just, I couldn't really explain it, but it wasn't the best song on the album. But I mean, overall, I would say this thing is killer. It's definitely worth picking up if you're into that sort of old school Swedish death metal sound, done by a newer band. And it's good. I'm not really familiar too much with Gatecreeper. The most that I'm familiar with them is due to the fact that Nate Garrett, who's in the band Spirit Adrift, he used to be in the band. And when I started getting into Spirit Adrift, I started looking into their other bands and all that sort of stuff. And I saw that he was in Gatecreeper, and I'd heard the name before, but never really listened to him. But yeah, this is great. I'd give it probably I'd say this one should get at least a 3.5, probably four stank face rating from me. Um, it's good, and I would definitely I'd recommend it. I'd pick it up if I were you. But then again, you don't have to listen to me, to listen to anybody, but do what you want. But I would recommend this. I enjoyed it. I would say that it's probably not as good as some of the other death metal stuff that I've been listening to recently, which I'll cover that at another time. But there's one album in particular that I just listened to that I'm gonna listen to a couple more times and then mention it. But it's phenomenal. I mean, I really enjoyed it a lot. It's more of a brutal death metal kind of thing. More, I would say, in the line of in the lines of a mortician, but a little bit more kind of technical and more decipherable, if that makes sense. It's not like Will Romer's vocals where it's almost indecipherable. But yeah, this one's kind of in I would say, as far as death metal stuff that I heard, it's definitely, it's up there at the top, but still, as far as overall stylistically, it's still kind of in the middle of the pack as far as a lot of the stuff that I've heard this year, as far as good stuff. But it's killer. So I again, I'd pick it up. Dark Superstition by Gatecreeper. It's on Nuclear Blast. It's available now. Go grab it if you want. If you don't, then you don't. And yeah, so that's that. So I hope you enjoy this. If you do, share it out and maybe we can get a discussion going. You all can tell me if you heard this, what you thought about it, and yeah, and then beyond that, I got some other fun stuff in the works, and got a couple stories I'm gonna share with everybody that people will either be entertained or nauseated by, but I just don't want to share them right now. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So until next time, as always, stay sick, stay heavy, stay brutal. Always tuck your chin upon impact. Don't forget to breathe. And so long from the Sunshine State. It is 2:30 in the morning, and I should probably get to sleep because I got to work tomorrow. Uh, and probably make some of that money back that I spent this week on CDs and vinyls and shit. So yeah, concerts and concert merch and all that stuff. But yeah, so be on the lookout for my Amon Amarth concert review. That should be a fun one, I think. I think everyone will enjoy that. And yeah, that's it. So I'll talk to you soon. Everyone have a good day, pleasant Sunday tomorrow, and hopefully you have a good week on this upcoming week. And I'll talk with you soon. Later.